Welcome to Inspire Saratoga, a show that highlights the people and stories that make our home a place of strength, inspiration, and success. I'm Michael Kurkowski, physical and mental performance coach and resident of Saratoga Springs. And in this show, my mission is to connect with the great people who also call this place home, hear about their work and what they do for this town, and share their insights and experiences in health, wealth, and happiness for you, my neighbors. Thank you for joining me wherever you are in town. Let's dive in. Katy Margison, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing me into your home.
Yes, we have lots of pictures on the walls and
Yeah.
our pet wall, and hopefully no one hears my puppy crying in the background.
It's the joy of podcasting. It's raw, authentic, all that good stuff. But I'm really excited to chat with you with all the work that you're doing with Athena Nutrition, and specifically a lot of the personal stuff that you had over the last year of making a lot of changes. I'm curious to know more about you. So what's the beginning steps here? Like, where'd you grow up and what eventually brought you to the work that you're doing now with all the stuff that you're doing with coaching?
I was born and raised in California, Southern California specifically, where the weather is like perfect 90% of the time. And we ended up in New York because my mom's family is from upstate New York, specifically a very small town called Minerva, which is about 45 minutes north of here, where we are in Queensbury. And a little fun fact, when people say that they've graduated from a small school, I have them beat every single time because I graduated with 12 kids in my school.
12?
12.
A full dozen.
Full dozen. Very small school, but I really look back at that time in my life and see very positive outcomes from that. Transitioning from California to such a small town was like such a culture shock, but it afforded me a lot of opportunities because with only 12 kids, there's more scholarships.
Right.
It's not as hard to be the salutatorian, not to like distract from my progress, but like I was salutatorian and it wasn't as hard as if you're in a school of like 3,000 kids. So that helped me like get into college a little easier, have more opportunity. And the health and wellness space was never something I was really interested in high school or even in college. And I played sports, but I was never like super serious about any of it. And it wasn't until I finished my undergrad through SUNY Plattsburgh, ultimately is where I ended up going. I was like, I kind of want to get into healthcare. Like I want to help people. I want to like give back somehow, but I don't necessarily want to do the clinical stuff. It wasn't really for me. To be honest, it's not that I have been like grossed out by any of the clinical aspects of like being a nurse or a healthcare practitioner, but the amount of schooling and clinical hours that you need to do did not jive with my life or my schedule because I was already working full time to support myself. I had no family support whatsoever. So I was really responsible for me. And at the time I could not figure out how to like make a living and go to school full time and do clinical hours to become like a registered nurse. Looking back, I think I was just naive and like didn't put enough effort into it. But all that to say, I ended up getting my post-grad in healthcare administration. And ever since, I've been in the healthcare field for over 12 years now. I still have a full-time job working in a nonprofit as a director of partner engagement and communications. But this is really where my passion is now, is coaching in some aspect. And I've been coaching for about 8 years in different capacities. So CrossFit was my first foray into the fitness space. I've been doing CrossFit since 2012, which was really before it was like mainstream the way it is now. And in 2016, I decided to get my level 1 certification, which in the CrossFit space, there's level 1, 2, 3, and then 4 is like really, really hard to get.
Yeah.
So I got my level 1 and started coaching at Lake George CrossFit, and now it's Lake George Community Fitness, so it's a little more broad. And I did that for 6.5 years, and I loved it. I love the methodology of CrossFit. I still stand by it to this day. Now I'm a USA weightlifting coach because that's more of my passion, is the Olympic weightlifting side of things. And then the nutrition coaching kind of came organically. That wasn't something that like I set out to pursue, but as I went through my own sobriety journey, which I'm sure we'll get to, I had a friend approach me and say, hey, like I've seen your weight loss, like do you help other people with that? And just having like somebody plant that seed in my head, like, oh, like I'm being looked at as a role model, like
Yeah.
interesting. And it got the wheels turning. And from there, Athena Nutrition was born.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you come from such a like small community,
Mhm.
are you guys all like, do you know everybody so intimately from there? It's like I'm always curious about such a small town. Like, were you guys all friends? Was it still cliquey type stuff like you'd see in bigger groups? What was that like?
Not clicky, not that I recall.
Yeah.
Everybody got along pretty well. I don't really recall like any social divide. To this day, I wouldn't say like we're all friends. We all keep in touch on social media.
Sure.
But most of them I haven't seen in years, but see them on social media and always hope they're doing well. Some are local, some are international.
Right.
I would say more local. I did see a few of them last year, but you do end up knowing everything about each other, your families. I don't know if that's specific to like small rural areas, but you know, if all of you are going to like a party in the woods, like everyone's parents finds out, like pretty much right
there's no
away.
hiding.
There was no hiding. I was very honest with my parents from the jump. At 16, I was like, listen, there's prom tonight. There's an after prom party. I don't want to lie to you guys. Like, can I go? And because I was honest, they were like, yeah, you can go. So I didn't have to sneak out. I don't think I could have. Like, so it was just, it was unique. I'll say
Sure.
that. It was very unique, but I look back on it with so much fondness now. Whereas
Right.
when I was in it, it felt like the world was ending sometimes because nothing was like sacred or secret. Everybody knew everything about each other in a small town.
Right. And I think probably everybody has that thought process at some point at 17. Like
Mhm.
nobody's super happy with where they are and you can't wait to get out. Just if
Yeah.
you're from a small place,
Oh,
you want
God.
something bigger.
Yeah,
Or
I
if
wanted
you-
out so bad.
But probably if you're in a huge space, it's like, and you feel so like just anonymous,
Yeah.
then you want to get something a little bit more intimate. The grass is always greener, I think,
Right.
on that side. And,
Right.
you know, you can't teach experience of just life at that
Right.
age. of
No, you can't.
Yeah.
I made a lot of stupid decisions.
I'm sure we'll get to some. So, so getting into coaching, so your first step was CrossFit, and you really like that methodology. I've spoken to a lot of people, actually very recently in the CrossFit space,
Okay.
from working with Mark England in the Unlifted program. He has a lot of people from CrossFit. Jeremy Strong was just on the Strength Connection, who
Okay.
just got his level 4.
That's
And
it is so impressive.
There's only like a few from there.
Yeah.
Very, very impressive man to speak to from there. But what was it about the methodology and then getting into coaching that really spoke to you in those early days when you first got started?
I think still to this day, there's this misconception that CrossFit is very intense and only for more elite or advanced individuals. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It is functional movement done across like broad time domains. It's different every day. I think the definition is constantly varied functional movement. And functional movement is something that I think every human being needs to know, understand, and be able to do. And when I say that, like just a basic body weight squat, being able to lift an object over your head or pick something up off the ground safely. Like we're not talking about like advanced bar muscle ups and 400-pound back squats and 5-minute mile times. That's the beauty of CrossFit is there's this whole spectrum of movement that you can scale to anybody's ability level. And I really liked that because I felt like it reduced that fear and that barrier to entry. I would often do the new client assessments coming into Lake George CrossFit, and they would always say, like, I've always thought I already had to be fit. Like, I had to get fit before I even came here. And I'm like, no, you get fit by coming here. And I say, think about it this way. Like, when you're 70 years old, do you want to be able to pick up your grandkids? Or if you drop something, you know, be able to pick it up off the ground? Or, you know, reach up in the spice cabinet for something, be able to get up off a chair. Like that's how I look at movement in general is how can we move in a healthy and functional way for the rest of our lives. And CrossFit I think is such a good application of that when it's coached correctly. And the methodology when applied correctly works really well. And you see a lot of improvement because it is very eye-opening how many people do not have an awareness of their body or just how to move it in a basic way. Because I would put them through movement assessments. Like, I just want to see you do a squat. And like this, I'm not like making fun of people by any means, but like people don't know how to do that. Right. And so it's really enriching and like heartwarming to be able to show somebody like their own capacity and their own like limits and kind of push them a little bit. And I really enjoyed that with coaching and having an impact on people and changing their lives and making them realize that they're capable of so much more than they realize or allow themselves.
Yeah. It's interesting. I came from the background of functional movement assessment for years. So I did thousands of movement assessments, and the same thing where like movement is a language, just like everything. And it's something that you can be very articulate at it, or you can be very illiterate at it. And by no fault of anything, we just all arrive at a specific spot. But that's where I saw a lot of people get very frustrated with that, because for my beginning days, I was cueing so much verbally with people.
And I over-cued a lot.
And like, why can't you get this? Like, it's just go down. But it's like, no, movement is a language. But once you teach somebody and you unlock that, it's like, that's as big of a victory as anything. And I think in CrossFit, there's the games and there's these amazing athletes that are doing crazy feats, thinking that this is what the world is. It's like, no, that's 5% of the spectrum of everything else. But one of the things I really did like about CrossFit and is the community aspect of it. There's a piece 100%. Where there is a tribal feeling to it in there. Did you feel that right away as well?
Oh yeah. I was at Planet Fitness before that, and for 2 or 3 years, I think. And I just got so bored of like doing the elliptical and then like doing some machines and like not having any direction. And I never set out to be like a competitive athlete. Like I said, in high school, like I played softball and I was somewhat decent at it, but I never did it beyond high school. It never worked out really during college. And once I found CrossFit, it like unlocked something in me. And I think the community part of it was huge. There's a reason I'm still going to that same place now, almost 13 years later. So I always joke it's the longest relationship I've ever had. The longest thing I've ever done in my adult life. And I also can confidently say, like, aside from sobriety, it was one of the best decisions I ever made as an adult, was to join a CrossFit gym. I've met, like, that's where I kind of met my husband. It's where I've met all of my friends throughout the last 13 years have been because of that one place. And we've done so many community events, been a part of people's weddings, baby showers, births, deaths. Like it is really unique and also beautiful at the same time. And anybody who says it's a cult, I mean, come try it. Like I used to joke with people, like, come try it and see if you can beat me, like in a workout. Let's go, let's have fun.
Was there a coach or mentor or somebody at the beginning steps that helped you a lot and kind of inspired you when you changed over into this methodology that comes to mind?
Initially at CrossFit, not necessarily. Like the original owner of Lake George CrossFit, Dirk, was certainly obviously an inspiring person to me, because he was my first real coach and introduction to CrossFit. And from there, it's had a few different owners, but I would say certainly him, and then probably one of the early members who's a very good friend of mine, Val, was definitely an inspiration to me. She's so strong. And just, she was a coach before I became a coach, so I always looked up to her as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting year for you, and you mentioned sobriety, and I know you're over a year now. So 400 days. So
let me see. Let me look at my app.
The total days, exactly.
I don't look all that often anymore, which is actually kind of cool. 421.
Okay. 421.
Yeah.
Okay. What inspired this? I mean, it's kind of an interesting question, but what made you want to get sober?
It's still wild to me that I'm like actually sober. I just got so sick of my own shit that I knew something had to change, or I was going to become very unhealthy, or quite frankly, like not live. Because it wasn't just sobriety from alcohol. Like I was a fairly frequent cocaine user, which is hard for a lot of people to like look at me and be like, her? Because I was in my mid-30s, I'm 36, so like that's not your typical profile of a drug user. They're usually doing that like much younger.
Sure.
And very successful career. I was Olympic weightlifting while I was doing all of this, and like leading a busy, fulfilled life that from the outside looking in, you would not think that I had any issues whatsoever. People close to me definitely knew that my alcohol usage and my drug usage was a thing, but I just increasingly got like so anxious, so depressed. Like I posted an Instagram like reel or something, and it got a lot of engagement on TikTok of like text messages that I went back and screenshotted that show the progression of like, oh, fun, like give me the bag, give me the key, like gonna go run in the bathroom, to like, I'm so tired of this, I can't keep doing this, like I hate myself. And the anxiety got so bad that I was like, I've got to do something. I'm drinking every single day. Like my work is starting to get affected, and if I continue down this path another 6 months, like I could lose my job. I could lose my life, because God knows what they're putting in drugs these days. And like, I'm not always the safest with like testing it. And for whatever messed up reason in my head, even though I was in this really bad place, I was like, New Year's Day seems like a good day to start over.
Yeah.
And I've never really believed in resolutions. And this was like mid-December, so I'm like, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing for a couple more weeks and I'll stop on New Year's Day. Whereas usually I'm like, if you want to make a change, just make it right now. But I didn't even do that. I was like, that seems like a good date. So I just kept on keeping on, even though I was miserable and I hated it. I didn't know how to stop.
Yes.
Like I couldn't imagine my life without drinking. It became such a part of me. Like every single day around 3:30, 4 o'clock, I was pouring a glass of wine. My husband's been sober almost a year in April, and like we would enable each other so badly. He would come home, grab a drink. I was like, oh, I have permission to drink now too.
Right.
He wants to party on a Friday night and get a bag. I was like, let's go. Like it was bad. And I knew something had to change, but I knew it for a long time, but it finally got to a breaking point where I was like, I'm really about to screw my life up if I don't make a change.
Yeah.
And New Year's Day was the day, and I just made a decision. Like I was just like, this is enough, and I stuck to it. And I'm kind of surprised sometimes that I've stuck to it, but it's such a part of my life now, and I've created this whole identity really, and almost a brand around it.
Sure.
That I don't see myself ever going back. I try not to think too much in terms of like forever with it, because the idea of like I'm never gonna drink again still sounds scary. And I kind of just like one day at a time. I don't know what 20 years from now is gonna look like, or even 10 years from now. So it's been the best decision I've ever made in my life, like hands down. It's hard as fuck.
Oh yeah.
But it's also so beautiful and rewarding. Like something that actually my therapist and I were talking about was the gratitude in the simplest things. Like I distinctly remember a week after I got sober, it was January 8th. It was a Sunday morning, and I decided to take the dogs for a walk early in the morning for the sunrise. And I started like crying up the road here, because I was like, I have not seen a Sunday morning sober. I can't even remember the last time. And I was like, this is amazing. This is what I've been missing out on. Like, it seems so silly, but it's like incredible.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know if you ever read the book by Ed Milet, The Power of One More, but he has
I know who he is.
It's a really interesting story. He talks about his dad, who was an alcoholic, and his dad was years and years sober. And one night there, it's like towards the end of the book, and he was talking to his dad one night. They were celebrating something on a balcony, and he went to his dad and he's like, Dad, do you think you'll ever drink again? And it's like, I don't know, but I know I'm going to go one more day.
Yeah.
And it's like that power of one more, of not thinking about it ahead of time. It was such a fascinating story. But it's interesting you talked about that with the January 1st and the New Year's resolution, because I have a take on this that I've talked about with people before, that if it's important to you, like just do it now, don't wait for it and stuff. I'm like, well, it's there's a lot of things that are very fun to say, and they make good memes or bumper stickers, but when you actually look at it in an application, I call these times like moments of forced reflection, like a holiday or a birthday or an anniversary. It's these times that naturally you are thinking of where were you, reflection, envisioning and stuff. It's like these times that are built into our calendar.
Right.
And if you just like think, okay, like right immediately, like now I'm stopping something or I'm going to the gym the next day and like you just immediately do it. That's a part of victim mentality as much as anything. It's like you're jumping into something so quick because you want to make a change. But actually planning out a day of like, on this day, I'm going to do this, you actually mentally prepare yourself to do it at that time. So I think almost like subconsciously, you probably did it in a way that is really powerful, that allows you to stick with it a little bit more.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I think when you say it like that, now I'm like, yeah, I think that's what I was trying to like hype myself up. Like, I can do this. This is the day. And like, I was so sick, even like physically and mentally at that point, that I was like almost getting more ready by the day leading up to it. Like, even like Christmas morning, like we used all Christmas Eve night, showed up to Christmas morning, like hanging on by a goddamn thread, and I'm like, I can't keep doing this. Like just one more week and it's gonna be over is what I kept telling myself. And it's the one New Year's resolution I've actually stuck to.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a time in your mind, I mean, because you said, I mean, you were working out consistently, you were staying in good shape, you were, you know, doing weightlifting. Is there a part in your mind of like trying to rationalize this of like, I'm good, like I'm totally
100%.
fine.
Yeah. When I tell people like I was still weightlifting while I was doing that, they're usually like kind of shocked.
Sure.
I wasn't weightlifting that great, I'll tell you that. Are you joking? Hey, what is it like? You both just decide like people are here and we're just gonna act up? Here, now you can get it. All right, that should mitigate power. Sorry.
We're good.
Yeah, I obviously wasn't doing the best I could at like anything at that point, but I always thought like it can't be that bad. I haven't lost my job yet. I hear stories of people who are going through addiction and like they've lost everything. They don't even have a house. And like, look at me, I still have my job. I'm still working out. Like I got this under control, but that control started to slip. Gradually started to slip, but it definitely started to slip. And I think for a little while, I almost didn't think like I had a problem. I was always convincing myself, well, because my life is still going well, I can keep doing this.
Right.
And there was always that little voice that like would tell me like, this is not normal behavior. Like when you go to the doctor and they ask you like the questionnaire of how many drinks you had, I would always lie. And I knew that like on a Friday night, like having 3 or 4 drinks before dinner, another 3 or 4 at dinner, and then going out and doing like an entire bag of cocaine, that's not normal. Like for anyone. And how could I possibly have been making any progress with my fitness or my health? Why was I even bothering to like track my macros or like weigh out food if I was about to go drink 2,000 calories worth of wine and eat greasy food at 2 o'clock in the morning? I just like look back, I'm like, how on earth did I do that? Like now if I like stay up till 10 o'clock, I'm like a mess. Like, I was really burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah. It is. I mean, we think of something like addiction. It's almost kind of a weird analogy with CrossFit. You just think of the extremes of things. Where if you think of something like, you know, addiction or sobriety, it's like this such rock bottom where like everything is gone and you're like on the street. It's like, no, a lot of people are still functioning in some capacity at a very high level. But as you said, like that voice that you just know something's a little bit off there that eventually kicked in. Did you try to get sober or quit any time before?
I did. In 2018, I tried to get sober. And at that point, I had not done drugs at all. That was just alcohol. And it lasted 3 months. And then I tried to moderate, as one does. And I was successful for a few weeks. And then it just kind of gradually continued to get worse. COVID made it, I think, a lot worse. Not only for me, but for a lot of people, just that isolation and working from home all of a sudden, like, nobody's watching me, so like I can have a drink. Like, and those excuses continued to pile up. I now am very certain, like, I cannot moderate. It's like one is too much and not enough all at the same time is usually what you hear people say. The act of trying to moderate my drinking at this point is such a mental battle that it's just not worth it. I knew it was getting bad if I went out to like a dinner with friends and I ordered my first drink and I like downed it and the server wasn't coming back quick enough, I would get like agitated. And that's like, I knew like things were bad at that point. If like I can't even like go like a half hour without a drink, like it was problematic.
Yeah. That word moderation is so interesting, right? Because I think everybody's like, do everything in moderation.
Yeah.
I also kind of think you can't know what moderation is for you unless you know what your extremes are.
Yeah. That's true.
It's like,
definitely know what my
I mean, where do you know kind of where balance is if you're somebody that can do that, if you don't know the extreme, versions of something, it's like, how do you know what like a medium or light workout is even if you never really push yourself to what your limit is to know exactly what that is.
Right.
It's kind of similar thing. Have you talked to other people at all who are on a sobriety journey during this time about their experiences? Is it similar to yours? Is it very different at all?
Yes and no. So I am a part of a group. It's called Happiest Sober Hub. Shout out Maddie. It's virtual and it is, I think, somewhat international because there's people from Canada and the US in it. There's meetings 3 or 4 times a week. So I try to get to at least one a week, sometimes 2. And that's a community of men and women alike that it come together and it's just kind of an open share. Voluntary, and even if I don't share or don't really have anything to add, it's always good to just hear other people's experiences. Even last night's meeting, I heard from a younger woman who just had her 1-year anniversary, and she was talking about the dreams that she was having right around the anniversary and dreams of like drinking again. And that happened to me too. At my 1-year anniversary, I had vivid dreams that I was using again and like woke up like, oh my God, like what happened? So like those big dates tend to trigger things for a lot of people. And that happened to me. And then hearing her story makes me feel not so alone. Like, all right, this is not a unique experience. Like we're all going through the same thing. The nice thing about that group is there are a good amount of women who are close in age to me that are newly sober, men too. So that also gives me comfort because for a little while it felt very isolating, and it still does in a lot of ways. My life is completely different now. The tricky thing was like only young people really go through this because they're trying things out and like partying and experiencing life as they should, and it just gets carried too far.
Right.
But I did that part of my life, kind of calmed down for a little while, and then like picked it back up as like a fully functioning middle-aged adult, which I don't hear a lot of that in like mainstream sobriety culture. You don't hear a lot about like the 35-year-old successful woman who got addicted to cocaine.
Right.
Like, I don't know how unique that is. Maybe it's not that unique. I don't know, but it's my story.
Yeah. How important has it been that you and your husband are working together on the same journey and connected together? That's been helped your relationship a lot?
Yeah. And contrary to popular belief, he came to that decision on his own. I did not force him into it. And I am so grateful every day that he came to that conclusion on his own. And he doesn't speak as publicly. Actually, he doesn't really speak at all about his journey. And that's his choice. Everybody's decision is different. I choose to be probably overly public about it, but I think that's what keeps me on the right path.
100.
It almost like putting it out there holds me accountable to something greater than myself. But it's aligned us for sure. It's challenged us big time. Those first 3 months where he was not sober and I was really hard because I was watching him drink, and he was very mindful. I'll give him that about like not overly consuming around me. But, if we went to a party together, like it was really hard for me to like watch him and everyone else. Like as the night goes on, you can see like what's happening and you're just kind of like, get me out of here. But I'm really glad that he did. And I mean, I don't know like what things would look like today if he didn't. I like to think that we would still work it out, but it would be hard. Because we're on very different paths at that point. And I'm just super grateful that he also did, and he's lost a ton of weight. He's also a competitive Olympic weightlifter like me, and he's actually arguably better than I am. So,
No
like,
competition at all.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's crushing it. So
That's great.
I'm really happy that he made that decision.
Oh, that's awesome.
It has come at the expense of our social lives and maybe some of our friendships, which has been, tough to navigate. And I think at some point we'll get back to like where we used to be with people, but we're just kind of in our own little bubble sometimes, and we both are okay with that right now.
Yeah. Well, and then you find the people that really align with you in new
Yes.
ventures as well. I
Yes.
think that's so interesting because as adults, it's weird because it's like you don't think about making new friends often as adults, but it's still possible. It's less if you know who you are more and what you really value,
Yes.
you tend to attract the right people.
That's my hope, and I think that's starting to happen.
Yeah.
Little by little. I wish it would happen faster, but that's just like me. I want everything
Of
like
course, yeah.
this. Mel Robbins' podcast I've been getting into, and she did one on adult friendships recently, and I listened to it, and it was really comforting to know that like I'm not alone in the experience of trying to make new friends as an adult. And something that she said that really resonated with me was, you probably haven't even met the people that will be in your life that are going to be the closest to you yet. So like the best is yet to come. And that gave me comfort that like, all right, I'm still in search of like the right people in my life, and eventually I will find them.
Yeah. That's interesting. It is an interesting thing as an adult from there.
Yeah.
But you do start to find the right people, and then when you get connections, you recognize the depth really quickly at the same time.
That's kind of what I'm looking forward to, is like having real conversation, like something like this.
Yeah.
But like just, with friends. And I do think I've had that throughout my life, even in drinking, and even the people that have been with me through different seasons of my life, I have so much love for, like, regardless of if we primarily drank together or not. Like, it's just different when you're sober. Like, the depth of conversation is different. You're not sitting across from each other at 2 a.m. coming up with like business ideas.
Yeah, I mean, the masks are off, it's like, so you
Yes.
really see people for themselves. That's one of the main reasons, Katie, I started this podcast, is, as adults, it's very easy to isolate yourself, specifically in your own problems.
Yeah.
And I think everybody, you probably see this with nutrition. I want to talk to you about that business as well. With people think that the struggles that they have, it's so easy to think that you're the only one that's dealing with it because you're in your own head. And when you mentioned that story about the young girl who just got a year and was having the dreams, and then you realize, holy shit, I was in that same position as well. Just that little connection of synergy with another person. We don't talk about that, but that is such a powerful thing to just look at somebody and be like, hey, I know what you're going through. Hey, I had that same shit before too.
Yeah, I see a funny comment on social media sometimes of like videos, and it's like somebody will say, so I've never had an original experience ever, because like we've all experienced these
We're all
things.
stealing from everybody.
We think that it's unique to us, but there's so many people on this earth that like somebody else has probably lived through it.
Well, it's what's the famous line in New York City? There's 8 million people, so 1,000,001 chance happens 8 times a day.
True.
I've
never heard that. That's a good one.
Yeah. So with Athena Nutrition, now this is the business that you work with, and you work with women of working with specifically with nutrition.
Yeah.
What are the common struggles or the longest levers that you see with people that you work with who are struggling in their health? Is it primarily nutrition? Is it their mental space? Is it a combination of the two, not knowing what to do? Tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah, I work with a business coach, and what he always says is people don't have an information problem, they have an implementation crisis. Like, we have access to infinite amounts of information that if you really wanted to sit down and even ask ChatGPT, write me out a nutrition plan, I'm going to eat in this calorie deficit and I want to go to the gym 3 times a week, and like these are the movements I like. It will give you everything on a silver platter, and you just have to execute. The problem that I typically see is people don't know how to execute properly, or they don't have the either motivation or discipline to do so. And I think motivation is fleeting. Like, you're never going to be fully motivated all the time. I made a reel about that this morning. Usually people just need someone to hold them accountable. The women that I'm working with like multiple nurse practitioners. Like, these are people smarter than me when it comes to health. And it's not that they don't know what foods best support their health or what exercises to do. It's that they need somebody to just really be there and support them, lead them on the journey, bring them into a community of like-minded women, and just like rise up together. That's really like what it comes down to. I could call myself an accountability coach sometimes. And yes, I do have clients that I can, teach them what macros are, or how to track your food, or what a balanced plate looks like, or here's an exercise routine that I'm going to program for you. And I love those people, especially because there's so much information that I can pass on to them over time that will lead them into hopefully sustaining whatever progress they make with me beyond our relationship together. My goal is, at least after the initial 12 weeks, because that's my initial commitment, that you don't need me anymore. Like, that's my goal. I want you to not need me anymore, that you have the tools, you know what to do, and you can do this on your own. But typically women just need some support. It's hard to navigate life as it is as a human being, but women especially, they prioritize themselves so low on the hierarchy of life. When I have initial calls with women who are interested in working with me, I ask that question, like, where do you prioritize yourself? It's almost always bottom of the totem pole, like the kids, the spouse or partner, the work, shuffling kids around and running errands and keeping up the house. That's all more important than taking care of themselves. And if I do nothing else with these ladies, like, I want them to know that prioritizing their health and their nutrition is an act of self-care and is something that they should be focusing on. Because then they're going to show up as a better partner, a better mother, a better sister, a better executive, like whatever their role is, they can show up better if they start taking care of themselves.
Right. It is motivation. I mean, it's such an interesting topic, and it's been beaten to death about it. But it's so funny. I've told people that, by just calling and talking to me, that is the definition of motivated. You made a choice to do something.
Right.
So you are motivated. But there is this idea of what that means. It's like a Rocky cutscene that you're this intense based, pigeonhole focus all the time. But I like what you said there is I think most people just need support.
Yeah.
They just need support, and somebody just to ask them an extra question, from there. Like my great friend Tyler Wall would always, we called it active encouragement, where he would just ask one more question just to leave a conversation. All right, what's one step that you're going to do this week to it?
That's exactly my weekly calls. I'm like, all right, so what's your plan for this week? What's one thing you're gonna change this week? We're first week, it's kind of, we throw a lot at you, but enough that you can handle. All right, so we're good this week. What's one more thing that we can add on to move the needle a little bit? And so far, it's a newer business for me. I launched in November, and it's going super well. I'm so amazed and impressed by the women that I truly, it is an honor to me to be able to support them in this way, and I do not take that lightly. It's very vulnerable to reach out and say, I don't know what I'm doing, or I just need support. That's such a vulnerable thing, so I don't take that lightly at all. And I consider it such a privilege to be a part of their journey.
I love it. It's great. All right, well, Katie, I have some rapid fire ones I want to close out with you here, okay? They start a little easy and then get a little bit more deep and introspective, so I'll give you a moment to think on here, okay? Window or aisle seat?
Window.
You're a window person.
I get nauseous.
Okay. Where's the best space to sit in a movie theater?
Near the back.
In the back, on the top, on the rafters?
Not in the rafters, 3/4 of the way back.
Okay.
I don't want to be staring up like this.
Beach or mountains?
Athena.
Hi, baby.
She's I want to be on a podcast, please.
Little guest spot. Almost done.
Beach or mountains?
Yep.
Beach all day.
All day.
Yeah, if I could get my husband to leave New York, I would be going towards the ocean.
Do you have a favorite beach?
I always look back fondly from living in California at Huntington Beach. It
Okay.
was the best beach, hands down.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you go Caribbean at all? You ever been there?
I have a bunch of times. I've been to Aruba, Jamaica, Cancun. Aruba beaches are like amazing.
They're
Aruba
amazing.
was my favorite place.
Eagle Beach is probably
Yes.
the greatest place in the world.
Yeah, you said your parents, right?
My parents lived there half
Yeah,
the year,
yeah.
and it's like that sun goes down over the ocean, where it's just like a orange orb out there,
Yeah.
just sitting there. You cannot be stressed out by
Nope.
watching that. Yeah.
Nope.
Okay, cool. What have you recommended the most to friends? A book, a TV show, a movie?
Ooh. Gosh, a TV show probably. If people haven't seen, well, first of all, if people haven't seen The Office, like go watch The Office. It's great. Sons of Anarchy, anything by
Taylor.
yes,
Taylor Sheridan.
yes, thank you.
Yes.
How'd you know?
Because I just watched Landman last
It's so
night. Just getting into it.
good.
It's so good.
It's so good. Anything by Taylor Sheridan is absolutely fantastic. I actually recommended my weightlifting coach. I told him to watch Reacher on Amazon Prime because they just released season 3 or
Oh, yeah.
season 3. So Reacher's really good. Book wise, I would say The Untethered Soul.
Okay, it's a newer book that came out, right?
I don't know how old it is. My old therapist and I read it through it together, and it is very deep and introspective and like talks about the ego and the self
Yeah.
and like kind of stepping outside yourself and like your thoughts and all that. So that's a good one.
Oh, I like that. Okay. Who's your Mount Rushmore dinner party? You have 4 people, live or dead, that you could sit down and have a full dinner with.
Oh my gosh. Probably my mom's mom, my grandma.
Okay.
Probably my dad's parents, because I never got to meet my grandmother and grandfather on his side. And people, I was gonna pick a dog. I was gonna say I would bring I would bring my cat Marshmallow back.
Okay.
Yeah, he's behind me. He's not a person though. Probably the 3 of them are the ones I can think of.
Okay.
That like, my grandmother definitely had a positive influence on me, and I never got to meet my dad's parents, so I'd love to sit down and have a conversation and just hear from them the stories that he's always told me. You know, growing up in such a different time and just actually like meeting them. So that would be
Oh, I
cool.
love that. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. What's the best advice that you ever got?
I think of all time, probably from my dad, like tough times don't last, but tough people do. But more recently, my business coach told me people suck, and the sooner that you realize that, the better off you'll be.
Okay.
And he's unfortunately right. Most of the time, people do kind of suck and don't honor their commitments. Not anybody I'm working with, all my ladies, and I do have 1 male client. They're all amazing. But yeah, a lot of times people are kind of flaky and don't always follow through.
Yeah, that's why you got to focus on your values.
Yeah,
focus on that,
the
and
people
right
who want to
Yeah.
be committed
It's
to
us.
working with me,
Yeah.
I am 100% committed to them.
I love it. Okay. All right, flip that side there. What's the worst advice that you ever got?
Just have 1 more drink. It's fine. We'll go home after.
I see the thing on this. Okay.
I've said more times than I could probably
Sure.
count.
Okay. You have 20 seconds with your 18-year-old self. What would you say to them?
Oh my God. It'd probably be something about alcohol. Like, it's probably 20, like, you're gonna want to get in the health and wellness space, do it before you're ready. I think with anything, like, if I could tell her one thing, do it before you're ready.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've been learning kind of as a new entrepreneur, if you will, is I think the people that end up being really successful are the ones who just do it before they're ready. Because and that goes with like nutrition coaching too. This is more than 20 seconds, I'm sorry.
I love it.
But you kind of have to just jump in like head first and figure it out as you go along. Because if you wait for the right opportunity or the moment that you feel ready, you will never feel fully ready. Like, I never feel like I know what I'm doing day to day trying to grow an online business. And that's obviously why I hired a coach to help me, because coaches need coaches too. But I would tell her, do it before you think you're ready.
Yeah, my great mentor, Pavel Tatsuman, has the best quote: "Understanding is a great delay tactic."
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good one.
yeah, because you know enough. You just need to set.
Yeah. That's, I was on a call earlier with a bunch of people kind of in this like business coaching group that I'm in. And some people are like, I'm nervous to like film content for social media. Like, I sound silly. And I'm like, just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Just do it. And if you really hate it, you can redo it. And you don't have to post it. Just keep it for yourself. But like, just do it. And that's kind of been my philosophy, is I'll just like think of an idea, film myself for 60 seconds. It's probably not the greatest from an editing standpoint, but I'll just post it. Like, but I'm at the point now, which like sobriety's given me a lot of clarity with this. Like, I do not care what people think about me. And it's really refreshing and freeing. Like, when I was drinking, I was so insecure and had like very little confidence. And now I'm like, you can't take anything away from me or make me feel worse than I've already made myself feel. So it's a really nice thing to be in that space.
I love that. All right, last one. Who inspires you the most in your life?
I hate that I can't like think of somebody immediately. You know, I would have to say, and she would blush if I knew I was saying her name, my friend Jenny, who I weightlift next to every morning. I always like looked up to her because she didn't really like drink. She was very straight and narrow, very smart, very dedicated to her weightlifting and really dedicated to anything that she does. And I remember being in like the worst of my addiction, like, man, I just wish I could be like Jenny.
Yeah.
And I think I'm getting more and more like her as the days go on, but she's definitely been an inspiration to me.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's nice that I see her every day too. So like that helps.
Sure. It's great. Katy Margison,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
If people want to check out more of what you're doing, follow you on socials, what's the best place that they can go check you out?
I'm on Instagram at the Sober Weightlifter, the Sober Weightlifter. I'm so surprised that username was not taken.
Well, there's the Sober Bodybuilder.
I follow him.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah.
And on TikTok as well at the Sober Weightlifter. And my website for all things nutrition coaching is athena-nutrition.com.
Beautiful. Great. Katy, it's really great hearing your journey and your story. I wish you all the best with this. I'm really inspired by you with all the work that you've done over the last year.
Thank you.
I know other people are too, so I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It's my first like live in-person podcast. I've done virtual ones, but not in person. So I like this better.
Yeah, it's a little bit different dynamic.
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you so much, listeners. Thank you. Catch you on the next one.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope you got some great value from this episode and a little more insight into some inspiring work happening right in this town. If you want to know more about our guests' work and check out more of what they are doing, please click on the links in the show notes below. And along with that, check out the direct link to 5-Minute Mindset. This is a 5-minute video that gives you the 2 best practices that you can do every day in 5 minutes that will create a major impact in your mental strength and resilience. If you are on your own mission to become physically and mentally stronger, these practices will be a serious game changer for you. Seriously. Thank you again for joining me today. I'll see you on the next one.